Righty, we might jump into it, but good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, which is using myEsri and is actually our final webinar for the 2024 Eagle webinar series. So myself and Andrew will be presenting today's webinar. So I'm Jess Burrell, and I'm a technical support and licensing analyst here at Eagle Technology. I'm based up in our Auckland office, where I've been working for just over 5 years now. And Andrew, would you like to introduce yourself quickly?
Yeah, thanks, Jess. So I'm the GIS technical support lead here at Eagle, and I'm based in the Deep South, which is very sunny at the moment, in Invercargill. Yeah.
Awesome. So for today's topics, we will be looking at myEsri. So within that, we'll be discussing the differences between ArcGIS Online and myEsri, as well as the interface of myEsri, what's new in myEsri, the administration responsibilities, as well as logging support cases and looking at the Esri support app. And to follow that, we'll be having a quick discussion about some resources that are available, as well as a live Q&A. So in relation to the Q&A, you should see a Q&A panel pop up on the right-hand side of your screen. This is where you can ask any questions throughout the webinar, and we'll try our very best at the end to answer all of these if possible, but we'll also open up the floor at the end if you haven't had a chance to put that in throughout the webinar itself. So again, ask at any time, just pop it in that chat and we will get to those answers when we can. Alrighty, so to kick us off, let's look at the difference between myEsri and ArcGIS Online. So myEsri and ArcGIS Online can really be seen as branches of the same Esri tree. So both are linked via your Esri accounts, and the simplest way of accessing both of these is by using your ArcGIS Online username. However, they do have their functional differences. So you can access myEsri and ArcGIS Online, both with public accounts. So you don't always need to have an organizational subscription to access this. But myEsri on its own is a self-service portal of sorts, which contains your organization's account information. And from here, you can look to assign permissions to your users, including the ability to log cases and accessing the Esri Academy. Most popularly, and what you've probably used it in the past, is for accessing downloads. And Andrew will speak about it a bit more later, but logging support cases. One of the benefits of myEsri really is having that user management all in one place. It's a one-stop location for this technical support information, as well as that main place of information where you can go and download your software of all different types. ArcGIS Online, however, is Esri's web-based mapping software, and that's accessed via a paid subscription or a trial if that's how you're starting out. And it's going to give you access to this geospatial content, which you can then use to create maps and apps and other content of whatever you desire, really. So bringing it back to myEsri itself, let's look at the interface of myEsri, have a look at some of the different options available, and discuss them a little bit deeper. So to start with, downloads. If you've used myEsri before, there's probably a good chance you have actually accessed downloads. But what we can do in myEsri is access all different product types. The key ones being across the screen here, so desktop being ArcMap, ArcGIS Pro, Enterprise, and Enterprise Kubernetes. However, additionally, outside of this, we have things like City Engine and the License Manager. If you're wanting to access those core products, you can simply jump on and click into any of these key products at the top here. If you're wanting that additional products to download, you can click those all other products at the bottom. You'll notice that on the screen at the moment, it's all the most recent and up-to-date versions of these downloads are showing as available. If you're wanting to jump back a version for whatever reason, you could look at all versions or also this ISO version. What it's going to do is take you back into even older versions. In some instances, you might need it for testing. We definitely don't recommend the more out-of-date options for downloads, but you never know, it might be necessary. To access this page is just this Downloads tab up on the top here. So you click this and this will be the first screen that you see. Cool. Next up, we have training records. This might not be as familiar to many people. However, in myEsri, you have the option to access Esri Academy, but additionally, there's options to be able to view what your organization's users are accessing, as well as assigning these permissions at other points as well. So you need to have Esri Access enabled, and this is something that's done through ArcGIS Online. and we can provide documentation if required. Once you have that Esri access enabled and you've been set up with training permissions in myEsri, you can go into myEsri Academy and start preparing all of your training courses and running through them as necessary. From a viewer perspective, there's a permission that says that you can view course information and course progression. This is what screen you'll see here. So you can see we can view this by title. So that's going to tell us what courses have been undertaken, as well as how many people have started this course, as well as how many people have completed it. Additionally, you can look at this by person. So if you're interested in certain users to see how many courses they've started and completed, we can view it that way. We can also export this information to Excel or set it up as a report, which Andrew will mention a bit later. But you can use these download functions to further explore the information and maybe produce it in an easier way to visualize. We can also see this general overview of, for our organization, 172 people have undertaken training, 847 courses have been started, where 657 courses have been completed. So it's a really good holistic view of how your organization is interacting with this training content. Next up, we have licensing. This might be a bit confusing to those of you who have used myEsri before, as this isn't currently functionality that is enabled for you to access. However, we've had a lot of feedback that this is something that people would want to start using. And what this would mean for you is eventually you'll be able to create your own enterprise licensing and desktop licensing if you're still using that single use or concurrent use method of licensing. So we're currently looking into making this available for you. We do not have a set date on when this will be made available, but please know this is coming soon in the future, which is very exciting, I'm sure, for many of you, especially those of you who have developer subscriptions. This will open up some additional opportunities here as well. Then we also have the Esri store. So some of you may be aware that earlier this year we had an New Zealand-based Esri store open up. So what this means is if you're accessing the store from a New Zealand-based VPN, you can gain access to the store. So from the store, you can purchase credits and additional licensing. However, we do hope that you discuss this with your account managers first, just to see if using the store is the best option for you, or if they'd prefer you work one-on-one together. Oh, I've skipped way too far there. Oopsies. However, how this links back into myEsri is that there's permissions available that can be assigned to you that will make this slide here visible. So the store purchases side, you can look at what purchases have been made. You can look at previous orders. So you can manage this a little bit more, making sure your users aren't purchasing things they shouldn't be. Again, this is a permission you can turn off too, so don't be concerned that they could access this without you wanting that. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Andrew. It was very quick.
Thanks, Jess. So, creating reports. So, one of the features that probably you may not have already been aware of is that you have the ability to create reports. So, reports are available to view, filter, sort, and export your data for the functionality that you have permissions to. So, depending on what permissions you have will depend on what reports you can pull out. So, for example, if I didn't have permissions to log support calls, and I clicked on the support tab here, I wouldn't have any access to the data or the reports available. So, the types of reports that we can see can range from the training records from my academy, which is displayed below here. But you can also look for, on the support side of things, with bugs and enhancements, as well as technical support cases. There's also ranges from events, the licensing and transactions that just touched on before as well are also available depending on those permissions. But it's a good way to get that summary of your organization, where they're at and what training or what interactions that they are having. So, what's new in myEsri? So, this has been the biggest change that we've made recently that you may not be aware of, but today, this is where we're widening the availability of it. So we've opened up to allow organizational administration. And with this, it also enables support capabilities. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and explain what that actually means and maybe why we have done it. So the major here is the administration responsibility. So previously, if you needed to administer your org, you would have had to contact Eagle or someone in their support team to either invite or connect, and that might have come from a referral from your account manager. Um, from our side of things, it's something that we can't actively manage. The reason for that is um, we don't have the level of detail of knowledge of your own org and how you manage your org. So it would require us for you to tell us what to do, essentially. So what we're now doing is we're giving those keys to you as a customer to be able to administrate your own organization. So what that means is you can now invite and connect your existing users. You can select users' permissions. So if you want to give them training access, they can have training access. If you want to give them permissions to log support calls or even assign authorized callers, then you can do that. You might have your own internal process on how you troubleshoot. So when you have problems and you want to log a support call, you might do your own internal triaging first before reaching out to Eagle support. So with that, you can identify those contacts within your org who you feel comfortable with allowing that to happen, as well as removing members. So from our side of things, we don't know when people leave their organization unless we've been told. So what we're finding in myEsri that we have a lot of users that have moved around different organizations but are still sitting in myEsri. So this is a way that we can allow organizations to manage their org better. So logging a support case. So I'm going to go through, well, actually, I'm not. Jess is going to do a fantastic demo here where how you can log a support case. This is probably the main benefit of allowing that administrator is to then enable your teams to log support cases via myEsri. But what I'll do is we'll look at the demo first on how you can log a support case and the functionality available to us, and then I'll explain the impact that this actually has.
Let's look at the new support functionality in myEsri. To request a support case, go to the Support tab and select the Request Case drop-down. We now need to decide how we'd like to submit our case, either by describing our product or using a system profile. Let's use by describing your product. I next need to decide my product description, starting out with my product. I'm going to use ArcGIS Pro as my product type, and my version is 3.4. My operating system is Windows OS with 11.0, and my operating system is English New Zealand. I then click Next. Now I need to have my issue description. Firstly, to start with my issue category. As my issue is related to an offline license in ArcGIS Pro, this will be an admin and installation category. My subcategory, in this instance, will be licensing. I now need to add an appropriate title for my request. My ArcGIS Pro license is stuck offline. I then need to assist this with an appropriate description of my issue. When I'm trying to log into ArcGIS Pro, I get the error message the account cannot be used to authorize ArcGIS Pro as it's already been configured to use in offline mode on some other device. Here I've clearly stated the exact error message I'm experiencing, as well as the software. I can also accompany my issue with an attachment of any error messages you may have received. In this instance, I've added a screenshot of my pro error that I'm receiving. I then click Next. If you have any internal case information or contacts, or if you're doing this on behalf of a customer, on this tab is where you can fill in these details. Additionally, you may have contacts that you wish to work with on this case, or you wish to be involved in the conversation. You can also add them here, and then click Next. Now we must summarize the details we've provided so far, making sure that everything is correct for our Esri analyst. If it's not correct, you can choose to modify your information. However, if you're happy with the current description you provided, please press Send Request. You can now see a case number has been created for us to use. To look at the updates on this case, we go back to the Support tab and click Overview. From here, we can look at cases, bugs, enhancements, and hotfixes, both opened and closed. If we scroll down and click our Case button, we can now see the case that we have just submitted. If I click the plus symbol, I can take a look at a little more detail of the case that I've just submitted. I can follow along with the activity, look at the issue description and the system profile information. We can also use this section to add notes to our support case, to raise the severity of our support case, to close our support case. And if our support case has been closed within the last 10 days, we can reopen it if this issue has reoccurred again. These are just some of the ways you can use the myEsri support functionality. Please remember that you must have authorized caller permissions before performing any of these activities. If you do not have authorized caller permissions, please work with your administrator to assign these to you. Let's look at the new.
Thanks, Jess. So I'm really excited about this functionality for multiple reasons. So it opens up the transparency. So you can see all of your cases in one location without having to scroll through your emails to look for the correct case. You can look and add notes. And you can also see bugs that have been attached to your case and their status. We quite often get when we in support, so when we attach bugs to cases, we often get feedback on what's the status of that bug and where is it sitting. So when we attach a bug to a case, part of the support process, that will actually be made available to you, that bug, within myEsri. You can't, one thing you can't do is you can't search for other bugs related that you may think that will be around. But your existing bugs that you currently have, you'll be able to see those status. So I feel that that is a massive change to allow you to have a record of those cases that you are logging with us and the help that you're getting without having to go through and search emails for case numbers that you've forgotten or something that's happened in previous years for another issue that you've had, because it might save you some time as well in the future if that issue arises again, that you can go and look at. The other side of it, where I can see the biggest benefit for us as well, is getting the right information initially. So what we saw from Jess's demo is relatively simple and easy to log a case. It's like writing an email. So it'll be just like writing an email to GIS support. However, we've got a couple of extra questions there just to confirm what versions that you're using and the software. Quite often our first response in the support case comes through is what version you're on. So if we can reduce that back and forth that can happen initially, we're hoping to aim to have those faster resolution times because we're getting that right information from the get-go. And I know you're all eager to know how we can get this functionality. So to do this, I'll go through, there's another slide at the end of this presentation that I'll go through. But essentially, if you email licensing@eagle.co.nz and CC your account manager in, then we can look to set this up for you. The reason why we're needing the account manager in is we just need to confirm that we're dealing with the right administrator with your org. Building on the login and support case is the Esri support app. So you can download the Esri support app from Google Play Store as well as on iOS devices. But there's some key features coming through. So I'll touch on generative AI chatbot. So of course, AI is getting embedded in everything we do, ChatGPT, etc. We're starting to see Esri's efforts now in AI space. So we've seen that through ArcGIS Pro coming in there. But Esri also have a support app where you can ask the chat AI some questions around workflows or issues that you may be having, and then it will give a response. The key thing here is the generative AI chatbot, sorry, in the Esri support app only references official documentation and technical articles. So from here, you're not going to see articles coming in that have been on deep dives of Reddit or GitHub or Wikipedia. They are authoritative data sources from Esri. So this is a key consideration from them as well because they want the right information to be given to your customers. You also have there's notifications that will come up. So you'll get notified about different types of bugs. So if there's a common bug or a common theme occurring in Esri globally, then they can actually have ability to notify you so you're aware of potential causes or issues that are happening, as well as technical support articles as well. If there's a common workflow that customers are having trouble with, the technical support articles are great with workarounds and workflows to support your daily operations. And with the ability of having case management, so opening up myEsri with login support calls, you can also manage and monitor your cases on your device and even submit cases. So on your phone, if you're out in the field and you've had a problem, say with field maps, rather than waiting a bit to get back into the office and then write up an email of what actually happened, you can actually log a support call from the field, as well as watching a whole heap of videos. So access to videos via the support app, and there's also the ArcGIS online health dashboard, sorry, available to you there as well. So resources. So myEsri, there is some blogs available. I know Esri UK have actually put out a couple of blogs around myEsri and how you can use it. But one thing we will touch on is Esri Academy. So there is two main training courses, as well as Jess's YouTube clip. So that video of how to log a support case is actually available on YouTube for you to go and see how to log a case. But there's two training courses as well available to you. So myEsri 101, which offers the introduction of what is myEsri and goes into a bit of the processes on how to use it and some of the popular features. There's also a secondary course, Introduction to myEsri Administration, and that's for those administrators on how you can administrate a myEsri. So, most important slide. So how do you get your administrator set up? So again, contact licensing@eagle.co.nz and CC your account manager. Please include some details around your administrator's full name, ArcGIS Online username if applicable, and and the administrator's email address. We would also recommend to have more than one administrator for larger organizations, um, and you can have more than one. The reason for this, it can help with a bit of business continuity as well. If you have an administrator leave, you've still got someone available that can manage your site and assign other administrators if and when required. So with that, it's a relatively quick webinar today, but I'm hoping that you loved the content and excited about how we can use the support logging. Um, Keep an eye out in 2025 for upcoming webinars. So Claire and the team are busy planning on what's going to be available in 2025. So keep an eye out on eagle.co.nz/learn to see what's popping up next year. So with that, I think we've got a couple of Q&A questions that we can look to answer, which we'll go through and answer now.
I
If
think
you've got any other question, please chuck them through. Sorry, Jess, you go.
I was just going to say the first one, someone's asked, can you assign training based on user types?
I don't think so. So it's just a license. Some trainings will require maintenance. So there's a whole heap of freely available training sources on my academy. But some will require maintenance, and that's part of your subscription with Esri.
You could also work with your users to set up training plans or learning schedules in Esri Academy, which might be a good way to guide them on what courses you want them to take rather than them just choosing whichever ones they prefer. But I don't believe there's a way to restrict them from accessing certain training courses. Andrew, I noted before when you talked about notifications in the support app, do you know if people can configure those notifications to their own preferences?
Good question.
If you don't know the
Um,
answer, I can answer.
I want to say I think you can select certain things you want, so ArcGIS Pro, um, or or um, or product types.
Yeah, that's my understanding also. I think if you were interested in certain news pieces, say blog articles or technical updates about certain product types, you can configure it to tell you specifically about that. Same with if bugs have been released about ArcGIS Pro or videos about ArcGIS Pro, you'll get those specific updates. But you should be able to configure it to your preferences, is my understanding. Doesn't look like we've got any more questions there. Please, if you have any, feel free to send them through now. But if something pops back into your mind later and you're a bit unsure, feel free to reach out to one of the emails that was up the front there, myself or Andrew. This webinar will also has been recorded, so it will be published in the next few weeks to our YouTube channel as well. Got someone there. So you're welcome to go back to that recording and sift through if there was anything you missed or anything you wanted to relay back to your colleagues as well. Oh,
We
sweet.
might leave it a couple more minutes. So if you've got any questions, we'll give you 2 more minutes. Otherwise we'll look to wrap up here.
If you haven't downloaded the support app yet, I would definitely recommend it. It's a really good way to sometimes get some quick fire answers if you're running into a few issues with support and you're not sure if you want to log a support case yet. It's very helpful. And thank you to the person who asked our whole one question for the webinar. You gave us something to talk about, so much appreciated.
Awesome. I think with that, we'll leave it there. But yeah, any further questions, please sing out, let us know. We're here to help. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you everyone for attending.